After we have discussed the virtues of intelligence and character, one would naturally want to know how they are acquired. That is what we discuss in Lecture 17 at Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. We will discuss how intellectual virtue is acquired and how ethical virtue is acquired, since they are acquired in two different ways. Intellectual virtue being the virtue of the thinking part of the soul, and ethical virtue being the virtue of the desiring part of the soul. Likewise, intellectual virtue is virtue of intelligence, while ethical virtue is virtue of character. Aristotle brings to our attention that no one is born with virtue. Intelligence and character are not innate, but are something that we acquire. No one is born with discipline or character. The degrees to which we become disciplined and knowing depend on our experiences. Some persons become knowledgeable, while others less so, and others become disciplined, while others less so, due to what happens in their lives and their experiences. Anyway, if our intelligence and character are fixed by birth, then the whole project of ethics, how to aim at happiness more successfully, is useless and irrelevant, and it would defeat our purpose, both as philosophers and as human beings who have influence and agency over how they live. It would just defeat our purpose as such beings to think that intelligence and character are fixed by birth. We learn and become better. So, how do we acquire knowledge? How do we acquire the virtue of intelligence? We learn and become better at learning through being taught. Knowledge can be taught to us by experience or by others. For example, a math teacher in a classroom teaches us information of various kinds about mathematics, the established facts and methods of mathematics. Or a baseball coach can instruct us about how to swing the bat most effectively. Or we can read books about how to do so. And thus we learn and understand how to swing a baseball bat best. And we can also learn from the practice of swinging that bat about how the bat is swung best. In the sense of forming intellectual insights in our understanding about how to swing a bat best. All our learning about theoretical matters, such as math, and practical matters of action, such as baseball, is like this, as far as insights and accumulated insights of our understanding go. But mere knowing, in the sense of insights of our understanding, is not enough to shape how we act, as for example, in the case of baseball. One may have incredible understanding and insight into the knowledge and theory of how to swing that bat, and yet not actually swing that bat that way. Or to use another example, such as swimming. One may have excellent theoretical insight of understanding of how swimming is best done, as explained by a coach or an instructional book or video, or even by reflecting on one's own experience. But it does not mean that one will swim that way or swim at all. How we act, the way in which we hit a baseball or swim or do anything else, is determined by how we desire or prefer to act, not by our thinking about action. The choice, whether conscious or not, of how we act springs from our desire and preference, not from our thinking. Otherwise, one who thought very insightfully about baseball or swimming on the basis of having taught explanations by someone else, for example, would also swim and hit a baseball with great success. But that is not so. The way in which we desire or prefer and actually do swing a baseball bat or swim depend on our practice of doing so. The more times we swing a baseball bat or swim badly, the worse a swimmer or a baseball player we are going to be. The more times we swing a baseball bat or swim well or rightly or correctly, the better a swimmer or a baseball player we are going to be. Aristotle argues that all of the preferences of our desire for how we act and what we like are determined in this way, based on practice or habits that we form as a result of having certain experiences and doings again and again. All of this is to say that our character, or the ways in which we desire, is formed in this way as a result of habituation and repeated practice. A single time of doing something a certain way doesn't form our character. The more, and to move from actions like such as baseball or swimming to actually virtues of character, the more times one acts with self-control, the more it becomes in one's character to be a person of self-control and to act with self-control. Likewise, the more times one acts without self-control, the more it becomes in one's character to be a person without self-control and to act without self-control. The more times one acts with temperance, the more it becomes in one's character to be a person of temperance and to act with temperance. The more times one acts without temperance, the more it becomes in one's character to be a person without temperance and to act without temperance. In other words, the more one acts with discipline and virtue, the more disciplined and virtuous one becomes and acts that way. And the more one acts without discipline and virtue, the more without discipline and virtue one becomes and acts that way based on their character being that way. That is what Aristotle means by stating in the section on how virtue of desire grows when he says that it is by acting in certain ways that human beings become same kinds of human beings. From the same comes the same, for short. Such as, by acting with justice, one becomes a just person, says Aristotle. It becomes in one's habit, in one's character, to act with justice. The general point here, of which we should not lose track, is that a person without virtue of desire, without discipline, self-control, temperance, does not follow the guidance of reason and knowledge. That person acts foolishly and is at war with themselves in their soul and is not happy.